Alright, so that's angles that you could get from underneath the starboard wing. I'll go over and look at the port wing. There are unused hard points from the rack that is no longer there. There's the hard points. I'll get measurements in a minute. So it looks like you could get terrain, the aircraft while flying. Different random shots. You can't really come down too far though, so maybe an outboard shot. Next. All right, so in the crew compartment, pilot seat. If you look down here, in the windscreen, up near where the defogger bar is, there's actually enough room for certain cameras to get down in there. So I'll take this out of the casing. And this trim piece is plastic. It can be removed, drilled for a permanent mount. And then we could bring this down here. So we get a forward view, but it doesn't get into the pilot's field of view. Probably a little buffing of the windscreen there, and maybe a coating to keep the reflection down on the lens. That could be a good shot. Anytime we come up here though, we're right in the pilot's field of view. So this is a possibility, mounted in plastic. What's the next view? Alright, so the ejector seat has an access panel. We got some unused holes here. So there could be a bar that holds a bracket currently. So that gives us a look at our mission specialist, or straight up, or anywhere around the horizon. So I'll put this back in the mount that it was in. So this is a slightly more realistic height. Close the canopy and look at the clearance there. So canopy's coming down from the edge of the canopy. There's 2 to 3, no, even more. There's probably 4 or 5 inches clearance. All right, with the canopy down, you actually have plenty. There's another 4 or 5 inches. So this means that if we wanted to, we could also, on that bracket, probably mount 2 or 3 cameras, since it's nice and wide. We could face them in different directions. An interesting shot might be here. Because we have all this clearance above the canopy, or sorry, above the seat, you can get a look at the controls, so the flight controls, and a little bit of the outside, top of the pilot's head. So that could be built in to that bracket, something that extends upward and allows you to get that. All right, next. All right, so another thing that we could do is we can have these, again, this plastic trim piece. There's a little bit of room here on the side where we could mount, I believe, you know, get a Dremel in here and just drill a couple holes. Wouldn't interfere with anything on the outside. And put a bracket so we have it here. So this is not in the way of any of the gauges or the canopy close lever. You get a look at your pilot and then some of the background. Other side, same thing. So this is over on the right side by the canopy jettison lever and the EGT gauge. Again, there's plenty of room. So we could get the probably the same type of view from that side, and maybe it's a little bit easier. It looks like this is a little bit clearer of a space over here. What's the next? All right, so now in the mission specialist seat, if we did the same thing over here, again, same pattern on top of the ejector seat. This gives us a view of the empennage, the mission specialist or trainee. I'll do the canopy check here also. Okay, here's an interesting note. It appears that somebody has pulled a lever that they should not in here, maybe at the end of the shooting. Somebody pulled the release latch? Doesn't look like it. But the rear seat is loose, so maybe put that on the list for classics. But here, let's check the canopy. Okay, so here it's a little bit tighter. This is about as close as we can get. You watch the pilot operate, you can see terrain. But there's not as much clearance as there is on the pilot side. Looking rearward, this is the maximum height we could get. So you can't really see the empennage, but mounted properly over here, you could get some interesting shots down on the wing quarter. Same thing here. I'm using a GoPro Hero Session, so that's the little cube one. And that's approximately the same size as the new Kodak cameras, the 360s. So I'll leave that there for a second. Canopy's come open. Okay, and then the edge is never as close as the peak of the glass. So it looks like the worst case scenario is when the canopy is closed and there's only about There's only about 1 inch of clearance above the GoPro session on top of its normal mount. So mission specialist left and right? Left, right, center? Okay, so same thing as we had in the pilot's part of the cockpit, except we have aluminum here. So we'd have to drill through aluminum. This isn't a load-bearing member, obviously, but there's a room for a mount there. You'll note that I left the old GoPro mount here. This is basically indestructible. It's not going anywhere. So we could use that in the future. You could put another one over here. Again, same places, same amount of interference. We could drill into this or this and put a mount. I'll take measurements for that. But